A recent article in Chinese state media caught my attention. They said, although India is the country with the largest population in the world, it does not enjoy the benefits of population on the level of economic and social development. But what made me laugh was that Chinese state media said that according to the United Nations Population Fund report, India's population reached 1.4286 billion this year, making it the country with the most population in the world, exceeding China by 2.9 million. Yes, you heard it right, China's media, they are keenly focusing on the issue of India's population dividend, saying that although India has the most population, it cannot enjoy the benefits of population on the level of economic and social development. Doesn't it sound deep? Haha, but actually it's not difficult to understand. Imagine this, it's like you're watching your neighbor's dog, and then you say, look at that dog. Why is it always scratching itself? While your own cat is tearing up your sofa. Haha, does this situation sound familiar? It's like a fat person mocking a newbie at the gym, saying that his exercise methods are incorrect. I tell you, this is a real sour grapes mentality. Here, I want to remind China's official media, they should pay more attention to their own country's problems. Chinese state media cares about India's population dividend problem, but forgets about their own problems. This is like a chef busy blaming others' dishes for not being as delicious as his, but forgets about the dish he is still cooking in his own pot, and ends up burning it. Perhaps Chinese state media should first look at their own pot, and then criticize other people's dishes, so as not to burn their own dishes. Because once you burn it, it has to be redone, and the cost is not small. China's long-standing policy of planned childbirth, coupled with crazy pandemic control in recent years, has led to negative population growth. At this time, seeing India's population dividend, doesn't it make the state media feel like they have eaten a lemon, feeling sour? Let's send them a bottle of antacid tablets, I'm afraid their stomachs are going to be burned by the acid. When you can't make money, you will always think, that person didn't make much more than me. The Chinese economy is now like this, declining due to poor government control, seeing India as the largest democracy in the world, its economy showing significant resilience, continuing to grow in an uncertain global environment. They can't help but criticize, saying that their growth model is flawed, service-driven, without sufficient funding support, it is difficult to create job opportunities. But, have they seen their own problems? Isn't China's economy also in decline now? I'm not defending India, India does have many problems to solve, such as education, employment, healthcare, and so on. But, this is like seeing a beginner at the gym working hard, and then saying, oh, look at him, his movements are all wrong, he is bound to fail. This is not criticism, this is jealousy. As for Chinese state media saying that India's economic growth model is service-driven, this is like an old man complaining that young people play too much on their phones. It's not bad, you just don't understand. In the end, I want to say that India still has a long way to go, but at least they are on their way. China, what right do you have to mock them? Don't you have your own problems? So, I want to say to Chinese state media, perhaps you can let go of your sour grape mentality, truly care about your own people, care about the future development of your country, instead of always nitpicking on other people's problems. In this way, perhaps you can really enjoy the population dividend. However, speaking of this, I still want to remind everyone, whether it is China or India, population dividend is not an overnight thing, it requires long-term effort and planning. Just like cooking a good dish, not only fresh ingredients are needed, but also the right heat and cooking skills are needed. You must remember, having more people does not mean better, just like your sweet and sour pork ribs, the more sugar you put, the better the taste does not mean. Recently, Indian Prime Minister Narendra Modi received a warm welcome from US President Joe Biden at the White House. This state visit symbolizes the increasingly close relationship between the United States and India, a connection that has led both countries to make some significant trade-offs. But the situation here is becoming interesting. The United States has publicly agreed to sell weapons to India and share sensitive military technology. This clearly shows that they want to deepen their relationship with New Delhi. You may ask, why? Of course, it is to balance China's growing ambitions in Asia. However, not everything goes smoothly. These ambitious plans face major challenges. The strict U.S. defense technology export regulations, as well as the concerns of the U.S. Congress and the State Department about sharing technology, are obstacles. There's more. Whether India is willing to accept the restrictions attached to American technology will be key. Will New Delhi act according to Washington's rules? Only time will tell. However, given India's growing IT expertise, they have great potential to surpass the United States in areas such as integrated command and control, sensor fusion, autonomy, and data analysis. In other words, the United States may have underestimated India's potential. But to speed up the development of US-India relations, the US needs India to speed up its trading process. Otherwise, potential deals here will not accelerate. In this context, China's response is naturally worth watching. Chinese official media pointed out that although India has the world's largest population, they cannot enjoy the benefits of economic and social development. This sounds like nagging because China recently lost its status as the world's most populous country. In terms of trade, India's largest export destinations are the United States, the UAE, and China. India's largest sources of imports are also China, the United States, and the UAE. Since the economic liberalization policy launched in 1991, India has attracted a large number of foreign investors. Despite a brief stagnation, India has rebounded in foreign investment. Now, let's see how this complex triangle relationship develops. Everything is constantly changing, and we will continue to follow this developing story. Hello everyone, I am your news anchor, Yali. We provide you with one-stop Chinese news broadcast and talk show performances here. I hope you can get daily Chinese news in laughter and happiness. U.S. Secretary of State Blinken met with G7 and EU representatives on Wednesday, June 21, after his high-profile visit to China, introducing the situation of his recent visit to China and meeting with Chinese leaders, and discussed how to provide support to Ukraine. The U.S. State Department said that the G7 emphasized the need for close cooperation in dealing with China and reaffirmed that the G7 is more united than ever. Analysts are skeptical about whether U.S.-China relations can really return to normal after the first visit to China by a U.S. Secretary of State in 5 years ended with a statement from China's top leader to stabilize and improve Sino-U.S. relations. The day after U.S. Secretary of State Blinken ended his visit to China, a U.S. Coast Guard vessel sailed through the Taiwan Strait. The U.S. House of Representatives passed the 21st Century Trade Initiative signed between Taiwan and the United States in early June on Wednesday. The agreement is comprehensive, and the first parts signed include unified management of tariff affairs, simplification of trade measures, and anti-corruption measures. The U.S. Senate will pass this initiative later. China believes this is the latest example of the United States hollowing out the One China principle. The United States hosts a state dinner for India's Modi, China may protest. On Thursday of this week, Indian Prime Minister Modi, who is visiting the United States, held a joint press conference with President Biden. Biden reiterated at the meeting that his calling Chinese leader Xi Jinping a dictator is based on facts and expects to meet with Xi Jinping in the near future. New Zealand Prime Minister Hopkins, who will visit China from June 25 to 30, said on Thursday that he does not agree with U.S. President Biden's remarks that Chinese President Xi Jinping is a dictator. The Frankfurt Review focuses on Modi's visit to the United States, pointing out that China is the absent protagonist. Beijing fiercely criticized, calling Chinese leader Xi Jinping a dictator, the statement as an open political provocation. This event once again strained Sino-U.S. nerves. However, the Chinese Foreign Ministry did not mention it in the text record of the press conference. U.S. Senate Majority Leader Chuck Schumer announced that he will lead the process of formulating U.S. Congress policies on AI regulation. Schumer said that the United States will become the world leader in AI regulation, and if it gives up control of AI algorithms to China, it will mean the decline of democracy. The Brooklyn Federal District Court jury in the United States made a guilty verdict for the first time on the so-called fox hunt operation by the Chinese government to forcibly repatriate anti-establishment figures living overseas. In an interview with Deutsche Welle TV, Taiwan's Foreign Minister Wu Zhaoxie said that if a war breaks out, the defense responsibility will be Taiwan's own, but the most important thing other countries can do is to deter, to prevent the war from happening. German Chancellor Olaf Scholz made a government statement in the Bundestag, proposing that China should abandon attempts to resolve the South China Sea and Taiwan issues by force. He emphasized this point during the German-Chinese government consultation meeting with Chinese Premier Li Keqiang. Scholz also said, "None of us wants to hinder China's economic development." He noted that China plays a decisive role in solving food security, reducing poverty, and dealing with climate change. Today, Chancellor Scholz warned China again in the parliamentary hearing not to use force against Taiwan. Süddeutsche Zeitung introduced a think tank study on the scenario of sanctioning China, pointing out the huge impact that sanctions will have on the world economy. It is uncertain whether the G7 will agree to sanctions on this scale. A U.S. Coast Guard vessel passed through the Taiwan Strait, an action that occurred the day after Secretary of State Antony Blinken concluded his visit to China, drawing dissatisfaction from the Chinese side. The first research institution dedicated to studying Xi Jinping's thoughts outside of China was established in Russia. Chinese Premier Li Keqiang concluded his visit to Germany and proceeded to France. Li described France as a major country with an independent spirit and said that China is willing to work with France to build a more resilient China-France and China-Europe industrial supply chain. The Atlantic Council and Rongding Group jointly published a research report stating that China has deep global economic ties. This makes comprehensive sanctions costly for all parties, with trillions of dollars in assets, trade, and capital flows at serious risk of disruption. The scale of this impact makes it politically difficult to enforce full sanctions outside of a war or Taiwan attack scenario. Japanese Prime Minister Fumio Kishida announced next month's participation in the NATO summit, NATO's eastward expansion, to resist the Chinese threat and maintain world order. In Japan, Chinese posing as police officers took bank cards from elderly women and stole money. The Canadian Security Intelligence Service tweeted a warning: "Do not become a recruitment target for Chinese intelligence departments. Be careful who you contact on LinkedIn and all other online platforms." South Korea has deployed THAAD and cleared environmental obstacles. On the 21st, the South Korean Ministry of Defense stated that the environmental assessment for the full deployment of the US THAAD system showed that its electromagnetic radiation is far lower than the safety standards. It is the first step for THAAD to be normally deployed at the Seongju County base. Previously, due to protests from nearby residents that the system affected health, the THAAD system could not operate at full capacity. China also strongly opposes South Korea's deployment of the THAAD system. In 2016, China-South Korea relations were tense due to this issue. South Korea stated that THAAD involves national security and sovereignty and cannot compromise. Facing the overwhelming information war of wealthy China, the Australian Broadcasting Corporation requested a significant increase in the budget from Congress. On the evening of June 19, Chinese Minister of Justice He Rong emphasized during talks with German Federal Minister of Justice Christine Lambrecht that the right to survive and the right to development are China's primary basic human rights. A recent human rights report pointed out that China is the worst country in the world in terms of many indicators, and Hong Kong's ranking is also falling rapidly. China ranks last among 30 countries, worse than Angola, Mexico, and Saudi Arabia, with arbitrary arrests, torture, enforced disappearances, and people's freedom of speech, assembly, participation in politics, and religious belief rights all being deprived. On June 22, a protester dressed in a camel-colored robe was taken away by school security at the gate of the Peking University home cafeteria during the Dragon Boat Festival holiday. The slogan on her sign said to overthrow the one-party dictatorship and embrace a multi-party system. Unlike some previous protests, this protester deliberately left her overseas account information. After the implementation of the national security law, Hong Kong's democracy and freedom have been hit again. The representative Hong Kong Public Opinion Research Institute stated on the 20th that it has decided not to publicly announce sensitive topic polls in the future, and about a quarter of the regular poll topics will no longer be publicly announced. The remaining approximately one-third of topics will be converted into internal references and paid services, including the June 4th, identity recognition, and cross-strait issues. Houses in Shanghai are also worrying to sell. The property market is the barometer of the Chinese economy. When market fatigue expands from new houses to second-hand houses, and spreads from second- and third-tier cities to first-tier cities, it shows that the pessimistic expectation of the overall economy is increasing day by day. Born in Taiwan, educated in the United States, and also one of Jack Ma's startup partners, Joe Tsai, will take over as chairman of Alibaba, China's largest e-commerce company, in September. Can his unique background, experience, and abilities save this tech giant trapped in growth difficulties? On the evening of June 21, an explosion occurred in a barbecue shop in Xingqing District, Yinchuan City, Ningxia Wei Autonomous Region. The authorities confirmed that it caused 38 casualties. Chinese President Xi Jinping requested full efforts to rescue the injured in the accident. The day before, the authorities confirmed that a coal mine collapse in Inner Mongolia earlier this year killed 53 people. The high temperature in northern China continues. On Thursday, June 22, the weather station in Huairu District, Beijing recorded a high temperature of 41.8 degrees Celsius, the highest in the country, breaking the local historical record. More and more young people in China do not want to get married, and even many elderly people with children also advise their children not to. That's the news roundup for today. Hope you enjoyed it. Remember to like, share, and subscribe to our channel. We'll see you next time. Take care.